It all sounds like a shadowy industry, well out of the public eye, and so secret that one might think even in the operating room lights have to be dimmed. But that's not the case. Kidneys from Kenya are offered openly on the internet in German on a website registered in Germany. Beneath a photo of a man with graying hair and a white lab coat, a stethoscope around his neck, the company promises something that is legally virtually impossible anywhere else in the world: a kidney transplant within just 4 to 6 weeks. Let me stop this right here, right now. In the United States, depending on your blood type, at minimum, if you have an A or AB positive or AB negative blood type, you're looking at a waiting list of at least 1 to 2 years at the very least. If you happen to be so fortunate like myself to be type O positive or O negative, guess what? 6 years long, 6 year long waiting list. So if you got the moolah, you can get a new kidney in 4 to 6 weeks. What about all the people who's been waiting for years? What about them? How's that fair? As many of you know, I am over 2 weeks post kidney transplant. Of course, it was a very big event in my life. I had a transplant on April 12th of this year, 2025. And the process, was very thorough, and especially in preparing you for transplant. And in no point in time did money exchange hands in order for this to happen. Now, of course, you have to have insurance to be able to pay for these things, which is, standard. But it's for the surgery, for the care. It's not for the kidney itself. Those are just donated by willing participants, whether they are a living donor or a deceased donor. That's how it goes. But I found an article that recently was actually sent to me by one of my doctor friends. And yeah, they're selling kidneys, and it's really pretty open. Where are they selling them? They're selling them to German patients. Let's go over this because this is going to be big. So, says organ trafficking, how Germans buy new kidneys in Kenya. Says Germans in need of new kidneys are heading to Kenya to buy one. The donors are frequently suffering from bitter poverty. Behind the scheme is an Israeli whom the authorities have been after for years. Oh, so now Zionism once again rears its ugly head, but this time it's in the organ trafficking business. Anybody surprised? Let's get into this. So it says the shock that perhaps is the best place to start. The realization that time had run out for her kidney and for her life. She had known it. The letter arrived on May 23rd, 2022, and it marked the end of almost 30 years she had lived with her first donor kidney. The envelope contained the results of a blood test. Her creatinine value was 3.6, far above the norm around 1. She knew then that the organ wouldn't last much longer. Sabine Fischer-Kugler hung on for another year, as she recalls, drinking less and consuming less protein and potassium. Then her doctor called with the new test results. Her creatinine level was now over 6. The doctor told her to get ready for the taxi, arrive half an hour later to take her to a place she had never wanted to return, the dialysis station. 3 times a week, 5 hours each time, for several years most likely, as long as it would take to slowly climb the long waiting list in Germany of thousands of people waiting for a new kidney, growing weaker all the while. I know exactly what this lady is going through. I've been on dialysis for over 17 years. And so I know what it feels like to go day in and day out to spend. Of course, yeah, my treatments were 4 hours and 45 minutes, but just shy of 5 hours. And the weak and exhausted and tired feeling you have after each treatment, it's a lot. It's a lot to go through. And so with that, people get desperate. So desperate to the point where it actually exploits other people. Let's continue here. So perhaps that's the right way to start to understand just how far a person is willing to go to get a new kidney. All the way to Kenya, all the way to the outer limits of morality and beyond. And how far a new kidney must travel such that Sabine Fischer-Kugler, 57 years old, can continue living as before. In her case, it was a kidney from the Caucasus in the body of a young man who flew to Kenya to have it removed so that he could then fly home, presumably with a couple of thousand euros in his pocket. Why not look abroad? The main thing is I once have a new kidney, I don't have to go back on dialysis. Her surgery took place on February 4th, and everything has been great since then. Her creatinine value is back to 0.67. And it's a young kidney, as you can imagine, as you can immediately see in an ultrasound. It's totally healthy. And how is the donor doing? Down to just one kidney 6 weeks later? She doesn't know. She doesn't even know the donor's name, nor does she want to. That too is part of the story when a kidney becomes just another commodity. When the supply and demand is dictated by desperation on both sides, when unscrupulous middlemen and doctors extract money from the global system of kidney capitalism. It is a business that is just as incompatible with too much knowledge as it is with too much conscience. One that operates because of the need and because of the benefits and the profits it produces. Der Spiegel, German public broadcaster ZDF, and Deutsche Welle teamed up over the course of several months to follow the Oregon Trail from Germany and Poland via Israel to the clinic in Eldoret, Kenya, that is currently at the center of international and seemingly criminal kidney trade. The transactions and transplants link patients in Germany with donors in Caucasus nations like Azerbaijan. And it links prosperous Somalians with young Kenyans who are talked into earning a quick 2,000 to 5,000 euros for one of their kidneys, while patients in the West pay up to 200,000 euros to the organ traders, preferably in cash. So one of the things that actually talks about, and this is why the for-profit system needs to go. Once you introduce profits into something that is an absolute necessity, like healthcare, this is the downgrade. The fact that somebody gets so desperate that they're willing to sell a body part. And it's not even for like some life-changing sum of money. 2,000 to 5,000 euros? A euro, the exchange rate between euros and the US dollar, a euro is only like 7 cents. I think it's like 7 or 12 cents above the US dollar. So it's roughly the same as US dollars. So would you, first of all, let's put the ethical side to the side, right? Would you be willing to give away a kidney for $5,000? Putting the ethics aside, would you be willing to sell your kidney for $5,000? It's crazy, right? And yet, this is what's happening. And it's not just happening to people who live in like the imperial core. These people are living in the global south, where desperation to survive is high, taking advantage of Kenyans. It's crazy. This is what capitalism does. This is the exploitation that we are trying to get rid of. Because nobody should ever have to go through this at all. And you don't think it doesn't happen here in the United States? Oh, baby, it does. It's just more underground. Let's continue. It all sounds like a shadowy industry, well out of the public eye, and so secret that one might think even in the operating room lights have to be dimmed. But that's not the case. Kidneys from Kenya are offered openly on the internet in German on a website registered in Germany. Beneath a photo of a man with graying hair and a white lab coat, a stethoscope around his neck, the company promises something that is legally virtually impossible anywhere else in the world: a kidney transplant within just 4 to 6 weeks. Let me stop this right here, right now. In the United States, depending on your blood type, at minimum, if you have an A or AB positive or AB negative blood type, you're looking at a waiting list of at least 1 to 2 years at the very least. If you happen to be so fortunate like myself to be type O positive or O negative, guess what? 6 years long, 6-year long waiting list. So if you got the moolah, you can get a new kidney in 4 to 6 weeks. What about all the people who have been waiting for years? What about them? How's that fair? But see, that's what capitalism does. It takes the people who have the most money and gives them the privilege of being able to skip everybody else in line. There's no equality in that. There's no fairness. There's no ethics in that. And so that's the way it is. So site visitors are directed to click on the following links to learn what the services cost. Once they do, they end up in a WhatsApp chat that ultimately leads to a man without a last name, because on the path to the shady world of organ merchants, a first name has to be sufficient. That is horrible. Horrible. No oversight at all. No type of oversight. And they're like, oh, we'll give you a kidney in 4 to 6 weeks. Just pony up the dough and we'll give you a kidney. This is happening in a Western nation, in a social democracy. The exploitation of people in the global south, their organs. Yeah. This is why we talk as bad as we do about capitalism. Let's continue. The location of the company's headquarters, which claim to focus on empathy and efficiency, also remains concealed. The address provided in the imprint leads to the construction site in Warsaw. The high-rise that once stood there was demolished in 2023. The consulting service agreement that Fisher Kugler signed with MedLead, meanwhile, indicates that the company is located at an address in Warsaw, not far from the airport. But nobody there has ever heard of the company, neither on the ground floor pizzeria nor on the 2 floors above it. On YouTube and Facebook, though, the organ merchants are much easier to find under hashtags like nearing transplantation or kidney transplant, or I'm not even going to try to pronounce that word, success stories. German patients gush about the medical wonderland of Kenya. Frank, the real estate salesman, Isabel, the business consultant, and Ingo, the heating engineer, all looked directly into the camera as they enthusiastically described their path out of the dialysis prison. Some of them even provide a bit of dubious advice. I can only urge anyone suffering from kidney failure in Germany, don't sit around and wait for some law you think will mean you'll get a replacement organ more quickly. Even though the laws are there to implement fairness. Not a single recipient speaks about the money they had to pay and what may have become of that cash. And only one of them sounds like he believes the story that MedLead would like people to believe, that the kidneys come from donors who provide their organs solely out of the goodness of their hearts for the desperate people who receive them. The narrative holds that there are selfless organ donors from poor countries who are lining up to have MedLead slice their kidneys out of their bodies, even as the transplant centers in wealthy countries like Germany are unable to find enough people who are prepared to donate their kidneys even after death. So this is what's going on in places like Germany. And I just want to share how this is terrible. So let me see. So let me go here so you guys can see, because this is also part of the country that is, the company that is doing this type of business. So let me see. Okay. It says the current head of MedLead is thought to have ensured that both donors and recipients provided false information to give illegal transactions the appearance of legality. Prosecutors allege that payments for the illegal transplants were processed through an account of a company owned by Spalansky in Albania. Prosecutors in Tirana said that Spalansky and Wolfman also used the company to launder money earned in the cocaine trade. There are several indications that the two still work together. Internet addresses both Wolfman and for MedLead, for example, were registered by a certain Mike.K, who is reachable through flymedical.com, and the domain in which the German MedLead website is also linked. Furthermore, a telephone number used by Wolfman and his wife linked to a Skype profile called medleadsp.zo.o, with Warsaw given its location. Spalansky did not respond to questions about the allegations leveled by the investigators. He only said that he has nothing to do with Wolfman and his companies. Wolfman could not be reached despite several attempts to do so. It is not known where Spalansky is currently. He disappeared from Israel in 2013. Investigators located him in Thailand and then in Turkey. What is clear, however, is that this company MedLead has been in operation for more than 3 years in the Kenyan town of Eldoret, population 500,000. It's a top destination for organ traffickers and has been a focus for criticism in the Kenyan media since 2020 as being a stronghold of the organ trade. The Mediheal Clinic of the center of town is often named as a frequent destination of the kidney mafia. So even in Israel, they're talking about Israelis are investigating what's going on because that's how egregious this is. Says, but not just the donors who are taking a significant risk. It's the case of an Israeli Mediheal patient illustrates the 51-year-old sold her house to pay 200,000 euros for a kidney transplant, an operation that should have never been performed because her tissue did not harmonize with that of donor. On the analysis form from an Indian laboratory company, it is handwritten remark, no match. Regarding the status of the donor, a man from Kazakhstan, the lab wrote unrelated. Yet in the medical documents, he is identified as a cousin. The donated kidney lost all function 2 weeks later and had to be removed to save the woman's life. Since then, she had to go in for dialysis 3 times a week and is living in a cheap accommodations where she moved after selling her house. When asked about the case by Der Spiegel, Medley responded with the question, are you aware that this woman has a documented history of mental instability? It doesn't matter if she is mentally unstable or not. You guys should have never been trying to sell kidneys. The hell is wrong with you? And so this is one of the reasons why this system has to go. Because ultimately, this is it just the exploitation is horrible. And if it's happening there, that means it's most likely happening here too. It's just more underground. I mean, some of these billionaires, they may know some people who know some people. So when I talk about having a nationalized universal healthcare system, I mean that people shouldn't have to feel so desperate that they have to come up with money to buy kidneys just so they can get off of dialysis. And so I think we really need to, look at this system for what it is. Something that is dangerous. You have these people who are desperate that they will give their kidney away. And then next thing you know, they're having health issues. That money goes quickly that they sold it for. They have the diminished quality of life, like especially if the procedure is not done correctly and if they're not kept up with. And I'm going to share this link to this article in the chat with you guys. Due to the sake of time, I'm not going to be able to go over it all, but it's quite egregious. It is. And I just think that, this just continues in the same frame as to why we need to change this system. So as a recipient of a kidney donated to me, I hope that we can soon live in a system where people don't ever have to even think about things like this again. Craziest times, man, crazy times. Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.